In this lecture, we will analyze the first relevant consequences of the crucial transformations that the economy is undertaking due to the development of digital technologies. We will try to shed a light on the confusing multiplication of words and concepts, attempting to grasp the comprehensive nature of contemporary work. Platforms, in this context, have often been associated with a neutral imaginary in which they operate as a digital infrastructure, intended to facilitate the interaction between demand and supply of goods and services. However, things are much more complex than these. Firstly, digital platforms emerged as a distinct organizational model containing both the characteristics of a horizontal marketplace and the typical hierarchy of private companies. Secondly, platforms seem to have become a new buzzword covering various transformations happening in the global economy which are not easy to distinguish and classify. In this regard, it's possible to speak of a general tendency towards a platformization of the economy in which companies are embracing a platform-based work model, incorporating all the possibilities offered by digital technologies in order to disrupt legal and labor limits to their initiative. Hence, we can highlight three main features of platform-based business models: the shift from the property of commodities to the governance of process, the opening towards external interaction rather than a closed productive process, the creation of an ecosystem of prosumers. In this context, it is also essential to focus on the meaning of the terms sharing economy and gig economy, which represent emerging sectors blending together larger socio-economic transformations. These are the result of a contested debate where the controversial aspects have emerged as a consequence of workers' mobilization who have worldwide broken the enthusiastic and optimistic narrative lying at its origins. We may frame sharing and the gig economy as particular sectors where the platform is adopted in an extensive and intensive way to embed a larger set of activities and trigger a rapid growth of income and investments. In other words, if platforms can be considered either as digital devices and business models, sharing and gig economy are the contents operating within that framework. Far from adapting the idea that the sharing economy is a new business model that emerged almost out of nowhere, it's important to understand all of its features as longer-term transformations which can be traced back to the end of the 20th century. The culture that bred the ideas of the sharing economy are to be found in the so-called Californian ideology, an optimistic and technology-driven approach depicted as a combination between the freewheeling spirit of the hippies and the entrepreneurial zeal of the yuppies. However, it's especially after digital capitalism became a popular topic that a more concerned consideration of the potential impact of sharing economy in the future of our societies has emerged. For example, in 2004, Yochai Benkler stated that this new kind of economy would be the very core of the most advanced economy. The year after, Michel Bowens' focus shifted to peer-to-peer economy, which he sees as one that gives rise to the emergence of a third model of production, a third mode of governance, and a third mode of property. Despite these pioneering works, the sharing economy exploded in its magnitude after the 2007 financial crisis. Nonetheless, the sharing perspective did not actually take place. According to authors like Trebor Scholz, not only the sharing economy wasn't supposed to be this way, but it became a Trojan horse. Furthermore, Sundarajan underlines how this was clear since the very beginning. The infusion of venture capital and the emergence of platforms with large corporate investors lead many to believe that any ideals associated with a pre-2010 sharing economy cannot be sustained. Something similar characterizes the critical debate on the gig economy. Some lent an unflinching support to the original idea of what sharing meant, while others emphasized the disruptive role of digital technologies in making it popular. Actually, the idea that domestic labor and more generally non-standard or informal labor are the main source for gig economy's development is fairly shared among scholars. In this sense, some of these authors have highlighted how the growth of the gig economy should be considered an evolutive outcome of the expansion of contingent work within general employment structures. More specifically, the gig economy has developed in the United States much before the spread of digital labor, especially in the construction sector and agriculture, for instance. Consequently, the very concept of the gig economy should not be overlapped nor limited to digital platforms. According to this interpretation, the spread of gigging is strictly related to a cycle of economic recession that ensued deregulation policies of various forms of employment. This, rather than to the development of new technologies of intermediation, should be understood as the critical factor fostering the emergence of the gig economy. Therefore, the gig economy, rather than ushering in the emergence of a new, more flexible and dynamic work culture, has become a last resort receptacle of job opportunities. On the other hand, it should also be stressed that new forms of labor organization based on digital platforms have developed and extended their reach alongside the progressive erosion of standard employments throughout economic sectors mostly characterized by gig, non-standard or informal forms of employment. Finally, more than being the mere result of technological development, share and gig economies seem to be the result of 30 years of global neoliberal policies, which have offered to platforms and their investors the possibility of exploiting technologies to exacerbate capitalism's extractivist tendencies. In this perspective, digital platforms are not giving birth to an innovative economy of cooperation, but they very much resemble old-fashioned economic dynamics based on dispossession and exploitation.